Hi guys, hope you're all doing well and getting on with everything okay. Weather's been a bit nicer today, which is lovely. I've gone a bit over the top today with the online shopping. I spent like £150 on makeup, which I've never done before. But hopefully it won't make me look like a clown. So today's lesson's on quantitative research methods. So what I've done is I've put as a title for today's lesson an actual possible question that can come up. So evaluate the claim that quantitative research methods may have many advantages, but they tell us little about what people really think and do. Okay, so the advice examiners give for these type of questions is it's best to talk about overall advantages of quantitative data and then focus it down using an example of a particularly a specific quantitative method, because it shows a higher level of understanding. So particularly if you're going for a B+, I would say what you need to be doing is talking about the general advantages of quantitative data and then refining it to give one as an example. So that's how I've set these questions up. If you're struggling with any of them, let me know. Some people asking questions and saying, oh, sorry to ask you a question, miss. It's my job. I'm happy to do it. Ask me any questions you want. Okay, so I've kept to the PET forum, practical, ethical, theoretical format, sorry, not forum. So what we've got here is 3 reasons that quantitative data tend to be more practical than others. And qualitative, sorry. So you've got the fact it's detached. So that means remember, you don't need to actually physically be there and interact with the people you're studying. It produces quantitative data and it asks closed answered questions that tend to be scripted. So I've given you some tips of things that you can talk about. So think about the sociologist's personal skills. Maybe they don't have the personal skills to interact and build a rapport with people that are needed in some qualitative methods. These methods tend to be lower cost, so I think you don't have to travel to see people, and think about use of data. Then you're refining it to a specific research method. So actually this little bit is a bit easier than the first bit. So you can pick any quantitative method set apart from lab experiments. I'll come to why you can't do lab experiments in the conclusion. So pick any research method that's quantitative and explain just 2 reasons why it's practical. And you can link back to things you've already said. So maybe you want to pick questionnaires and explain why they're detached and why they can't be flexible. But for your evaluation, although they're easy to use, they're actually, because they're detached, you lose out on a bit of validity. So explain how that could negatively impact the research. So what you might want to talk about is like not being able to gain first-hand experience and the fact that they're not flexible. So those are some things you can talk about in your evaluation there. Okay, ethical advantages. So quantitative methods tend to be slightly more ethical than qualitative methods. There's less chance of putting people at risk. Again, we're not going to talk about experiments here, and I'm going to come to the end of why we're not going to talk about experiments at this point. Okay, quantitative data is always detached. There is no quantitative method where you have that much of an interaction with the participant. So, for example, in structured interviews, although you're talking face to face with a person, you're not developing much of an interaction because you're scripted and you're focused the whole time on your script, not building rapport. Also, with the quantitative research, you always can gain informed consent. So, for example, with structured interviews, you're able to explain what the research is about, gain consent, and explain how you're going to keep the research confidential. And then you can explain using why, with an example, why it's easier to protect confidentiality with quantitative data. So remember, when you're producing the data, you're not kind of producing like scripts or descriptions, it's just overall percentages. Okay, but on the other hand, if you use a less ethical research method, like covert observation, you're going to get more valid results. So that's your evaluation, but you just need to take that a bit further and explain why. Do you know why, Riff Raff? Okay, now then we've got theoretical issues. So with theoretical issues, this is where you're going to link in your stuff about positivists. So positivists obviously explain quantitative data and prefer quantitative data. And if you think of the general overall idea, positivists like cause and effect, so they like to look for patterns of how one thing leads to another. So you might want to use, this time you can use experiments, so you might want to explain how like experiments are quite useful for gaining that kind of cause and effect. This bit's really quite tough actually, so if you've got any questions, as I say, please let me know. Positivists believe we have no free will and therefore we do not need to look at the meaning behind action. So explain why they would prefer to use quantitative data and see qualitative data as a waste of time. Remember, they think it's important to gain lots and lots of data to prove a social fact. So as an example, you need reliable information, reliable research method, so you can repeat it again and again and again and check that your findings are accurate. And it's important to be detached so the sociologist does not influence their research. So remember, if they think we've got no free will, they think that it's important that we don't have to look for the meaning behind people's actions, and the researchers shouldn't engage with the people they're studying. And then you evaluate by saying why you think interpretivists are more. And then you evaluate why interpreters think that valid data is more important, using your term Verstehen. So you follow those and you do it well. You're looking at a nice A-star essay, but obviously with a nice A-star essay we need to finish it off with a conclusion. And we've talked about we've talked about quantitative data in general. However, lab experiments are neither practical or ethical, so you can just conclude by saying not all quantitative data has the type of advantage, and explain why for your conclusion. If you're stuck with any of that, please let me know. Hope you're all okay, and I'll send another video out soon. Right, bye.